People who are no longer bound by NDAs, what are some surprising secrets that you can expose? I worked for a website creation company back in 1999, managing the website for a big brand large bank that was sponsoring a round-trip paid ticket to the Super Bowl. I worked on the website that collected all the entries, and I posted the rules that the company's legal department wrote to describe the rules of the contest. A random winner was to be selected for the prize, and I wrote a software tool to randomly pick the winner to be used when the contest was over. When the contest ended, I was told to forget my tool, forget the rules, just look in the database and find someone in South Florida, where the Super Bowl was in 1999, so the company wouldn't have to pay for airfare. Walmart corporate office puts a screensaver on all their workers' computers with a message urging them to donate to an emergency fund for their FT or near FT warehouse and retail workers, instead of giving them healthcare or PTO. Walmart retail and warehouse workers are kept just below FT so they can't get benefits, and the vast majority receive government benefits. Your taxes are subsidizing millions in benefits for the richest company in America, so the richest CEO in America is richer. Everything in the second paragraph of this post is public knowledge. In a tech support role, one manager used to boast his team's average call times were the lowest in the company. While average call times were in the 12-17 minute range, his team was constantly under 10 minutes. His team was awarded multiple times and his strategy was adopted company-wide to all customer service and technical support teams, including our internal IT teams. That strategy was under a strict NDA, as we did not want to allow competitors to emulate it. When our call center would go bid on contracts, it became an awesome metric. Our customer satisfaction scores are on par, but we have call times 20-30% lower than our competitors. A dirty secret of the NDA that I was not allowed to disclose? Their big method: just hang up on people. Straight up. Find a way to say okay, go ahead and do that and call back. If it doesn't fix it, then hang up. Don't wait for confirmation. Okay, so reboot your PC and your problem should be solved. Thanks for calling. Click. Eventually they came out with more useful metrics that tracked things like first call resolution, which absolutely shredded this company, and they went out of business a year or two later. I was never under an NDA, but the hotel is under new ownership, so I guess I can say it now. The hotel had no internet connection starting around 1 AM to 6 AM. Like clockwork, every night. IDK if it was just a system fault or if it was cost cutting. But without internet, the security cameras didn't work or record anything. The fire alarm system doesn't work either. The alarms go off but it doesn't call for help. So if we had a fire that started at 3 AM for example, then unless someone else that's driving by calls it in, I have no idea what's happening. One night we had an air assault happen in the parking lot. The police needed camera evidence and our cameras didn't record anything because the internet was out. So that was fun explaining to the detectives. Intel Corporation used to go around to colleges and hold programming contests, and to the winner they'd give mid-grade laptop and a gaudy trophy. Back at corporate, some of these winning code bases would get tens of millions of dollars poured into them in attempts to get them to product release. The private school I worked for was for students identified with giftedness. The owner of the school administered the giftedness test. Can you pay the tuition? You're gifted. Can your sibling pay? Them too. Your cousin? Neighbor? Kid you know across town? You're all gifted. In Prince George's County, Maryland, county transit bus drivers are instructed following an accident they are not to speak to anyone until a supervisor arrives on the scene. An approved method for not talking, especially to other drivers involved, is to feign injury. There's actually money allotted to pay the fines related to wasting 911 and emergency resources. because analysts determined it was cheaper than costs associated with drivers accidentally admitting fault. There's also an entire audit and analysis team related to accidents because of the sheer volume of people who falsely claim to be on a bus during an accident. Edit. What an incredible response. To clarify the current PG County, the bus transit system is run by a company called RATP. They were hired during COVID, which was after I left the state. The company running the buses until 2020 was called Veolia. I've seen an early cut of John Wick 2 where all of the animal handlers were running around on screen in green spandex bodysuits, running alongside the horses, carrying leads for the dogs, etc. Just all of these people who are invisible to the actors and the rest of their world. Absolutely surreal. I worked at Verizon and we were told we had to use special offers to try and save customers. An elderly man called to have his wife's phone disconnected after her death and I didn't do any of the saves. Got called in for QA overview and got written up. About 20 years I signed an NDA with a very large record company regarding their attempts to get into selling their catalog online. Streaming, sales, etc. It was a minefield because they were still wary of pissing off high street retailers, and that's where the charts came from. These attempts were frustrated by their top level corporate guys. One week they all went to what is an MP3 conference in Buenos Aires to get them up to speed. The thing is they spent so much time partying, the only talk which seemed to stick was the scare tactics about how teens could scrape MP3s from the web, and they could be copied and redistributed easily. When they came back, every item in the catalog was ordered to be scrubbed from the web. No 30-second previews, nothing should be audible. Not a hint of audio. Lock it all down. Put all the tapes in a chest and seal it with concrete at the bottom of the sea. That's gonna make everyone go back to CDs. Good old profitable CDs. I briefly worked at a university in South Florida in the late 90s and early zeros. I was chosen to be on an academic integrity team, basically reviewing claims of plagiarism and cheating and deciding between the 5 of us whether it is valid or not. We were made to sign NDAs when we accepted the invite to be a part of the team. There were 3 instances where an employee that was taking classes there clearly cheated, and the issue was brought to our attention. Those 3 times, the cheating was blatant. All 3 times, we were told to let it go, as it would look bad for the university to have it get out. I'm not sure if this is common for other universities, but at the time, I was under the impression that it was common practice everywhere. It was ultimately one of the main reasons I ended up quitting. I was and still am disgusted by it. Edit. I did not expect this one to blow up the way it did. Just wanted to say that I am loving and cringing at your stories. The seediness is astonishing. The lady who owns Columbia Sportswear neglects her animals to the point of death. And then she just buys more. I was supposed to be a caretaker for them, but there weren't even basic med supplies like Butan SWAT or Vetrap. She wouldn't call the vet for almost anything. 2 goats died of malnutrition. Another, its entire hoof fell off. 12 chickens died. 2 mini donkeys died. The guinea pig was kept alone in a hamster cage, and she kept her late husband's dog Monty locked in a dog run. Her dogs were permitted out but not Monty, even on leash. Initially he was allowed out and I got with him great shape, taking walks every day. But one day she stopped allowing even that. I quit when she started talking about getting 30+ sheep and pigs. It was a miserable place, her mansion. I only worked there a year and brought in my own supplies to treat what I could, but it'll always break my heart I couldn't do more. I called animal control multiple times and they never helped, even with the goats who looked like walking skeletons. Rich people can do whatever they want to living things. Y'all would be surprised at the amount of investment in commercial real estate the Saudis have in this country. I was under an NDA to not discuss the financial backer of massive project, valued at the time of around $440 million, $2008/$9 here, in the DC area. In the same land deal, our firm and those that had to work on the project had to have an NDA for the sale of a large chunk of land in the same development to a company that doesn't exist that built a massive data center next to the massive data centers in the DC area. We were given more than market value for the land and told not to talk about it. We just amended our site plans and scratched that section off the plan. Tesla and Rivian electrical components are made in the same facility by a large electronic manufacturer and even share personnel. This once caused Ellen to throw a fit and threaten to take the contract somewhere else. The solution? For the next visit, the company separated the lines by a wall and told Ellen they had ended the Rivian contract. They still produce both and also the components for the new Ford electric models. Not under an NDA, but I am not allowed to say this to people. My employer is an HCM company and the department I work in administers COBRA. For our friends not in the US, COBRA is a law that allows an employee to pay out of pocket to keep benefits they had while they were employed after a separation. This has been a thing since 1986. In many cases, your employer has to reinstate coverage with the carrier. There is no punishment if they do not. They have to inform you of your eligibility within 45 days or face fines with TAMRA, which is part of the IRS. We are not allowed to tell you that your former employer hasn't let the carrier know. We have to take the blame. There are some clients where I work where we do inform the carrier, but carriers like Blue Cross, Anthem, and Cigna are right now refusing to accept the reports we send them and your coverage remains inactive. But the majority of the time, the client, employer, is responsible for reporting to the carrier of your COBRA election. There is no maximum time allotted for reinstatement. I've seen cases where the employer, client, has not reinstated benefits for 1 year, until the beneficiary tried to use the coverage and was denied and they had been paying $2,500 a month just for their medical. This was not illegal, just irresponsible. Reinstatements are the number one issue I deal with and it's daily. I have tried to get my employer to make an effort to ensure the client reinstated in a timely manner, and they refuse, saying they do not want to anger the client. I've also written letters to President Biden and VP Harris explaining this situation and to present policy. An expansion of TAMRA to include reinstatement deadlines would do wonders. Former agent for a driving app here. I used to handle the drivers part of the app, and that part was rather messed up, because I would often get drivers asking why their accounts were taken down. I stopped being surprised after realizing that for every 3 drivers that reached out or so, 2 among them were shut down, either for fraudulent activity or for, mostly sexual, misconduct. Frauds include starting and stopping without the rider, messing with the GPS to charge the rider with surcharges, especially on airports, or attempting to upload bogus or edited documents. About this one, it was disgustingly easy to bypass the docs filter, because there were plenty of countries where the app worked, that didn't run background checks. On top of that, privacy policies wouldn't let us disclose the cause of the deactivation, either. Thus resulting in drivers often trying to sneak back into action with a duplicate account, only for me to laugh in their faces when finding out they were stonewalled because of their original account. On the other hand, there were a handful of drivers who presumably didn't do a thing wrong, but then again, policies would leave our hands tied and we had to give out the bad news anyway, if you know what I mean. I'll maybe edit this comment if I can remember more. It's been about 5 years since I stopped working there. Eater, I just remembered another one. Incidents involving sexual assaults, murder, altercations and the like, were handled by another team elsewhere, and we had strict orders never to disclose such incidents with whoever asks about the matter. Since this type of incidents would compromise the company's reputation, we barely had any new updates about them, or no updates at all, instead finding out through news circulating about. This is how I found out about most of the incidents, a fraction involving females being sexually assaulted or murdered in the worst of cases, another fraction involving app drivers being involved in altercations with local taxi cab drivers demanding to GTFO and resorting to attack the driver if their demands aren't fulfilled. The last fraction of incidents involves drivers being mugged or killed by organized crime. This is also relevant as drivers are often unprotected when in such scenario. Former professor at a Florida State College here. No NDAs, but claim of sexual harassment not investigated thoroughly because faculty victim was male and unpopular with administration. President of college twists faculty arms to change semester grades. Faculty initially failed a student for the semester over blatant use of AI to complete writing assignments. The faculty member was coerced into allowing student to rewrite all assignments in the 6 weeks after the end of the term. The Victoria's Secret fashion show in Shanghai in 2017 was an absolute shit show of corruption, kickbacks, and hookups. The Chinese government took VS for an absolute ride for so much stuff, and that's not including all of the middlemen who wanted to get their beaks wet as well. The amount of money that VS spent to have their fashion show in China was astronomical and got them, at a minimum, investigated by the US government for the amount of bribes they were paying. My ex-BF's company went from legal operating company to greedy operation that exploited financially troubled individuals. He had signed an NDA and non-compete. When they took another step to legally defraud people, he was able to report to authorities. His ex-boss actually sued him for violating the NDA and he had to hire an attorney for court. When they got there, the boss was being charged, federally, and assets frozen, couldn't afford to pay his attorney. He also tried to sue him when the ex opened shop 2,000 plus miles away. His attorney advised that it's not enforceable. The case ended up on a TV show about scammers. I worked for a company who worked for a company who worked for Cisco, networking. Cisco had created a new product for small business, basically a cheaper version of their normal routers and switches. When hired, I was one of about 20 people, most of whom had zero networking experience. We were told that it was done that way because they wanted non-techies specifically learning the product. This made no sense to me. We were told that we had to get CCNA certifications before we could go live. We were then given a month of boot camp training and personal study sessions. It took about 2 months, and a few tries, for everyone to get the certification. The problem was that we were 20 kids, with little to no technical or networking experience, working on a new product that we technically weren't versed in. We were given generic CCNA training and no training on the product itself, and expected to handle all tech support for the entire country. I once had a call to fix a connectivity issue for a chain of banks. The guy who called me admitted to making $450 an hour and asked me to take my time solving his issue. He called the guy making $20 an hour. Believe it or not, it was the classic tech support question, is it plugged in, that solved his issue. He forgot to plug in the power. I'm not sure why this was supposed to be tied to other banks, but I'm guessing that it was at a main hub and something wasn't going out to the branches or something. I didn't ask. 90% of the employees on that team quit within the first 3 months of working there. A mortgage company I worked for shut down because they lost Fannie and Freddie backing. The CEO told us it was because of 3 loans that shouldn't have resulted in this punishment at all. It was his son. It was vastly more than 3 loans, and it is so bad he has permanently lost his license to be a loan officer. Used to work for government. One of the department heads didn't realize his mic was still on during a meeting break, and said some less than flattering things about his colleagues. He came to me the next day and wanted it removed from the tape, and made it very clear that my career would be limited if I didn't obliged. I obliged, though I had already made a copy to my personal server earlier that morning, just to have leverage in the future, should I need it. Worked on the legal team of at the time the largest cannabis company in the country. We were owned and operated by a middle-aged white lawyer and a few of his investor bro friends. One of my duties was submitting the application for new cannabis licenses. To get special treatment or interest, we would select oftentimes a minority woman to look like the CEO of the company. We'd create LLCs under their name and submit all of information making it look like this woman minority was the CEO to get the license. Then once we were awarded it, we'd wait out the designated amount of time before transferring the license to one of the bro investors. Only got caught in one state doing it, and when they threatened to make it public and take the license, we paid them $200,000 in fines, hush money. Worked in cannabis for 4 years and saw some really unethical people, from lying about grow process to percent to hiding mold infestations when this is people's medicine. You're much better off growing your own. Feels weird posting this as I'm a big time lurker and not technically under any NDA, but I was working for a medical devices company where the financial director was also the production director, who instructed the production teams to use a prototype calibration machine for their main product, neonatal ventilators. The electronic engineer who designed the prototype was not happy, rightly caused a big fuss and ended up resigning. That guy was an absolute hero. Big respect. That company kinda shattered my perspective on ethical engineering roles and I ended up changing industry. My wife used to be an associate in a well-known multi-level marketing company. I won't say which one. She dragged me along to one of their how to get rich in this business seminars where someone way up in the pyramid was speaking. The speaker at one point was advising the audience on how to commit tax fraud by deducting everything imaginable and then some on your taxes as business expenses. Some of it was borderline, but a lot of it was just straight up tax evasion. My wife was still in her true believer phase at that point and thought the secrets of the universe had been revealed to her. We argued about it for a couple weeks afterwards, until she finally agreed to ask our tax guy about it, and he basically said, "Lol, that's totally fraud. I hope you like the color orange." Worst part was the reason the speaker was advising everyone to commit tax fraud was so you can invest more back into your business, which translated from MLM speak means keep pumping money into the pyramid and making us rich, suckers. I used to work in packaging, and there was a big promotion coming up for the 18 World Cup. Basically, the beverage company we were working with thought they'd be able to sell more of their product if they were able to correctly predict the winning team to use for their promotion when the winner was actually revealed. Obviously, if you waited for the champion to be revealed, it would be too late. The supply chain has got to start well in advance. Basically, the beverage company did correctly guess champion team, and a lot of people involved in this deal had to sign NDAs basically stipulating that they couldn't go around shouting, "I know France are going to win because this company have asked us to print all this France merch in advance, etc. You don't have to be Nostradamus to guess the champion of the World Cup, but it's the fact the company we were dealing with were suspiciously certain of it, along with the secrecy surrounding this knowledge.